A humble waitress goes about her day, unaware she's about to be the center of a millionaire's audacious public declaration of love. Amid the flashing cameras and astonished onlookers, a song becomes the vehicle for vulnerability, courage, and raw emotion. The story will explore contrasts: wealth versus simplicity, spectacle versus sincerity, public judgment versus private longing, while charting the journey of two unlikely people whose hearts collide in an unforgettable, heart-stopping moment. The clink of glasses and soft murmur of conversation filled the upscale rooftop lounge, glittering with fairy lights strung between polished pillars. Adrian Cole, impeccably dressed in a tailored navy suit, leaned casually against the balcony railing, scanning the crowd below with the detached ease of someone accustomed to attention. The city skyline stretched behind him, a panorama of twinkling lights that mirrored the glittering fame and fortune surrounding him. Yet, beneath the confident exterior, a familiar ache tugged at his chest, another evening of empty applause and hollow smiles. He had everything the world told him should make him happy: wealth, influence, admiration. Yet tonight, as the soft notes of a live jazz quartet drifted through the air, Adrian felt the gnawing weight of solitude. No one here would see the cracks behind his polished smile. No one would hear the quiet, unspoken yearning for someone who saw him. Not the image, not the headlines, just him. He ran a hand over his jawline, almost expecting the ache to vanish with the motion. It didn't. Meanwhile, a few blocks away, the city hummed a completely different rhythm. Mia Harper balanced a tray loaded with steaming cups of coffee and buttery croissants, her apron dusted with flour, her hair hastily pulled back. The diner was modest, but in her hands, it felt alive. Each cup she placed, each word of encouragement she offered a tired customer, carried a small piece of her kindness. Mia wiped her palms on her apron and let out a soft sigh, her back stiff from hours of leaning over counters and dish racks. This was the life she knew: unremarkable, predictable, safe. Yet beneath her warm smile, there was a quiet longing, a hope she rarely allowed herself to name. She dreamed of more than just scraping by, of a life where she didn't have to choose between bills and the fleeting comfort of a warm meal. But dreams, she reminded herself, were luxuries she couldn't afford. A bell chimed at the diner's door, drawing her attention to a brisk autumn wind that swept the street outside. Mia adjusted her apron and forced her thoughts back to the line of customers awaiting their orders. Each one was a reminder of the ordinary life she led, and the extraordinary one she secretly craved. Adrian's world and Mia's world were galaxies apart, yet both carried the same pulse of quiet yearning. One sought solace amid wealth and spectacle, the other sought validation in the little moments of daily life. And soon, by chance or fate, those pulses would collide in a way neither could have anticipated. Later that evening, Adrian found himself restless in the private lounge of the event he had attended. The polished crowd laughed at his jokes, toasted his name, yet no one truly saw him. A friend nudged him toward the small stage where a live band had started an upbeat tune, and Adrian's gaze inadvertently followed the flow of waitstaff carrying drinks and trays of hors d'oeuvres. Then he saw her, Mia, though he didn't yet know her name. She moved with a natural grace, stepping lightly across the room as if the air itself wanted to part for her. Her hair caught the soft golden lights, her laugh bright yet unassuming. She didn't notice the wealth surrounding her, nor the judgmental stares that often accompanied it. Adrian felt, without understanding why, an immediate and profound tug at his chest. His heart skipped in an unfamiliar rhythm. This was absurd. He didn't know her, and yet, something about the way she moved, the small smile she offered a confused guest who had spilled a drink, unsettled him in the best possible way. The room seemed to blur around her, the laughter and chatter fading into a distant hum. Mia, oblivious to the eyes now fixed on her from across the room, continued her work with quiet diligence. She reached a tray to a tall man whose suit shimmered under the lights. He caught her eye, a flash of something unplaceable passing between them. A flicker of recognition, perhaps, or the sheer gravity of someone noticing her in a room full of oblivion. She quickly looked away, cheeks warming as a small flutter ran through her chest. Adrian, momentarily stunned, realized he wanted, no needed, to know her name. The logic of such attraction made no sense. She wasn't part of his world, and yet, in that instant, she eclipsed it entirely. The band's tempo shifted, softening into a slower, intimate melody that filled the room with expectation. Adrian, on an impulse that startled even him, walked toward the small stage. His friends called after him, but their words melted into the background as he focused on the woman whose presence had inexplicably claimed him. Mia's tray clattered slightly as a guest took the wrong order. She laughed softly, the sound light and musical, unaware that she had already captivated someone whose life was defined by attention. Adrian watched her, heart thudding, and for the first time in years, he felt entirely visible. And then a thought crossed his mind, a reckless, daring, impossible thought. A song. Not a whisper, not a discreet compliment, but a song sung aloud, declaring something that had never been said before in such audacious terms. Mia, wiping a counter and humming to herself, had no idea that her world was about to collide with someone else's in a moment of public, uncontainable emotion. In that instant, Adrian Cole decided to risk everything, for the first time for someone else, for love that demanded to be seen. The evening had taken on a surreal glow. The city lights beyond the glass windows of the grand gala shimmered like stars reflected in water. Adrian stood behind the stage curtain, heart hammering, as the soft hum of conversation and clinking glasses washed over the room. Guests in sparkling gowns and crisp tuxedos laughed politely, unaware that the most extraordinary moment of their night was about to unfold. Mia had been asked to serve refreshments near the stage. She moved with practiced grace, balancing a tray of champagne glasses, unaware that her presence alone had captured the millionaire's full attention. Her hair had loosened from its tight bun, soft strands brushing her cheeks, giving her a casual, effortless elegance Adrian couldn't stop staring at. He gripped the microphone stand, the metal cold against his palm. He could feel the weight of every pair of eyes on the stage, the cameras, the flashing lights, all capturing him in a way that usually felt performative and empty. Tonight, though, the spectacle wasn't for them. It was for her. Adrian took a deep breath. His fingers tightened around the microphone, knuckles blanching. Then, with a surge of courage that surprised even himself, he began to sing. The opening notes were soft, almost trembling, but full of sincerity. His voice carried through the room, a rich baritone that cut through the polite chatter and forced attention. Mia froze mid-step, tray balanced precariously in her hands. The notes were unmistakably familiar, Adrian's song, a piece she had never expected anyone to sing for her. And yet, every word, every inflection, seemed to pierce the air around them with intent. From the moment I saw you, something changed inside. A world so loud, yet only you I recognize. Her heart skipped. She looked up, and there he was, Adrian Cole, vulnerable, exposed, singing just for her. The room had gone silent, all eyes now on them. Gasps and murmurs swept through the crowd, but Mia felt none of it. All that existed was the song, the words that seemed to speak directly to her soul. He continued, every line weaving their invisible connection into the air. Every step you take, every laugh I chase. I never believed in love at first sight. Until your eyes held me tonight. Mia's hands shook. She almost dropped the tray, but she steadied herself, mesmerized by the sincerity radiating from him. In that moment, she saw not the millionaire, not the man with headlines following him, but a person who had chosen to risk ridicule, to lay his heart bare for her. Adrian's gaze locked onto hers, unwavering. His voice wavered slightly, raw emotion threatening to spill, but he pressed on, each note a declaration, a promise, a plea. If the world laughs, if the lights burn bright, I'd still stand here for you tonight. Time seemed suspended. The chandeliers above sparkled, yet the light on him and her felt separate, private, like a universe carved out just for them. The murmurs of the guests faded into white noise, replaced by the pounding of hearts and the trembling hush of awe. Mia felt tears prick at her eyes, unbidden. She had never imagined such vulnerability, such courage from someone she barely knew. And yet here he was, singing her into the center of his world, exposing himself in a way that demanded honesty, courage, and trust. The final note lingered, reverberating through the hall and into every corner of her being. Adrian let the microphone fall slightly, breathing heavy, eyes searching hers. For a suspended heartbeat, silence reigned. Then, applause erupted. Cameras flashed. Guests stood, clapping and cheering, some whistling in disbelief. Mia, caught between astonishment and overwhelming emotion, felt her hands tremble and her knees weaken. Her mind raced, a flurry of disbelief. Why me? How could someone like him see me? What if this is all a cruel joke? Adrian took a tentative step toward her, breaking the spell of the music, but not the spell of the moment. He extended a hand, not in dominance, but in invitation, a bridge across worlds, a quiet plea for trust. She hesitated. The crowd buzzed around them, strangers craning their necks, whispers like electric currents in the air. But Mia, for the first time in years, felt a single clarity. In the storm of spectacle and wealth this moment, the truth of his voice, his vulnerability, was hers alone. Her fingers brushed against his. A spark traveled from skin to skin, subtle yet undeniable. The room faded entirely, leaving only the pulse of possibility between them. Adrian's lips curved into a small, relieved smile. He had bared himself completely, risking reputation, ego, and pride. And Mia, she had not yet responded with words, but her eyes, wide and glistening, conveyed everything words could not. The morning after the gala, Mia Harper returned to the quiet rhythm of the diner, though everything felt subtly altered. She moved through the routine with mechanical precision, pouring coffee, arranging pastries, offering polite smiles, but her mind replayed the previous night like a relentless melody. Adrian Cole's voice, the song, the intensity in his gaze, refused to leave her. Yet beneath the memory, doubt gnawed. Was it real? Or just another headline? She glanced around at the familiar walls of the diner, at the mismatched chairs and scratched counters, grounding herself. Here she was safe, invisible in a world that often overlooked her. She had survived by staying small, unnoticeable, cautious. And suddenly, a man who could have anyone had thrown himself so publicly recklessly for her? Meanwhile, Adrian wrestled with his own storm. In the privacy of his penthouse, he scrolled through the viral footage of the gala, every social media post a mix of adoration and ridicule. Friends texted, half mocking, half concerned. What were you thinking? Bold move, but risky. Even with wealth and influence cushioning him, doubt began to creep in. Did he embarrass himself? Was he naive to think someone like Mia could ever trust him, let alone love him? And yet, beneath the anxiety, there was an undeniable truth. He had sung because he had to. The alternative, silence, restraint, would have been worse than any public humiliation. His chest tightened at the thought of her reaction. Was she even aware of the risk he had taken? For Mia, the diner was her sanctuary, a place where she could control the world around her. Yet each time she heard a snippet of a conversation mentioning Adrian Cole, her stomach fluttered and her pulse quickened. Friends tried to tease, coworkers nudged, but she kept her lips pressed into polite, unreadable lines. She wasn't ready to process what had happened. Was this love? Or a fleeting spectacle destined to fade? Days passed, and the city buzzed with speculation. Videos of Adrian's song went viral, hashtags trending, commentators dissecting every word, every look, every subtle gesture. Mia avoided the online maelstrom, but the ripple inevitably reached her. Strangers whispered in line at the diner, cameras flickered on the street corner, and even her regulars, people who had always treated her with warmth, gawked with curiosity. Mia's heart ached with a tension between excitement and fear. She had been seen, truly seen, by someone extraordinary, and yet she recoiled from the attention that followed. She caught herself imagining Adrian watching her from afar, or worse, thinking she didn't appreciate the gesture. Pride clashed with desire. She wanted to respond, to reach for the warmth she glimpsed in his song, but she feared being hurt or laughed at. Adrian, on the other hand, tried to maintain composure in the face of public scrutiny. Meetings, charity events, and endless calls filled his schedule, but his thoughts wandered back to her laugh, the way her fingers trembled when she adjusted the tray, her gaze that had caught his completely. He longed to hear her voice, to see her unguarded smile, yet he hesitated. How could he approach her without overwhelming her world with his own? Both of them now existed in a suspended state, tethered by the memory of the song, yet restrained by fear, pride, and the invisible walls separating their vastly different lives. Each wanted connection but feared the vulnerability required to take the next step. One evening, Mia's friend nudged her gently, breaking through the bubble she had created around herself. "You can't just pretend it didn't happen," her friend said softly. "He didn't have to do that. He chose you." Mia's chest tightened. She had never been the center of anyone's world in such a tangible public way. The gesture was pure, undeniable, but the fear of being exposed, of being hurt, or of the spectacle crumbling her quiet life, held her back. Adrian, too, faced resistance, not from Mia, but from himself. His friend's subtle warnings and society's scrutiny whispered at him relentlessly, "Don't get attached. She's out of your world. It's impossible." And yet, every fiber of his being resisted that logic. He wanted her in ways that couldn't be rationalized or contained. The push and pull of desire and fear created a taut tension, a space where neither could fully act. The song had opened a door, but stepping through required bravery that neither had fully summoned yet. Each continued their daily life, Mia at the diner, Adrian at his office, but their thoughts remained intertwined, like invisible threads pulling them closer even as they resisted. It was a delicate dance of proximity and distance. They had glimpsed the possibility of love, yet both feared the exposure it demanded. Mia worried she might be a fleeting fascination. Adrian feared rejection in its rawest, most public form. The story teetered on the edge of anticipation. One act of courage had ignited a spark, but now came the struggle to bridge the worlds that separated them. The rain had started as a whisper, a gentle tapping against the diner's windows, but within minutes, it had grown into a relentless downpour. Mia Harper wiped down the counters, glancing outside, noting the torrent flooding the streets. The last customers had hurried out, umbrellas collapsing under the wind, leaving the diner unusually quiet. And then the bell above the door jingled. She looked up and froze. Adrian Cole. Standing there, drenched in a soaked trench coat, water dripping from his hair onto the polished tiles. His expression was unguarded, vulnerable in a way she hadn't seen before. The crowd, the cameras, the gala, all of it had been replaced by this intimate, ordinary moment. "And Mr. Cole," she stammered, the words barely escaping her throat. He gave a small, sheepish smile. "Please, just Adrian." His voice carried the warmth she remembered from the song, but now laced with hesitancy. "I hope you don't mind me barging in like this." "I know not at all," Mia replied, her pulse quickening. Her hands itched to adjust her apron, to act normal, but she couldn't. He was here, drenched and real, and suddenly her carefully maintained walls felt flimsy. He shook off the rain, water pooling at his shoes, and glanced around the diner. "I didn't know where else to find you," he admitted softly, almost apologetically. "I wanted to see you, to talk if you'd let me." Mia swallowed hard. The diner's fluorescent lights reflected in his eyes, making them look impossibly sincere. She wanted to step back, to retreat into safety, but she couldn't. Something about his presence held her rooted, a gravitational pull she couldn't resist. Okay," she managed, forcing a calm she didn't feel. "You can sit." She gestured toward a corner booth. He nodded, settling in with an awkwardness unusual for someone of his stature. The contrast was striking, the billionaire in jeans and damp coat, a few steps away from a humble waitress whose apron smelled faintly of coffee and pastry. The disparity could have been jarring, but in that moment, it felt right. For a while, neither spoke. The rain drummed against the windows, creating a private rhythm just for them. Adrian watched Mia move behind the counter, wiping down a tray with precise motions, and a flicker of admiration crossed his face. She was graceful in her work, grounded in her world, unaffected by his presence. Finally, he broke the silence. "I know last night was a lot. The song, the crowd, everything." His hands flexed nervously on the table. "I hope I didn't scare you." Mia's eyes darted away. "It was overwhelming," she admitted. "I didn't expect any of it. And I'm not sure how to respond." Adrian nodded, leaning back slightly. "I understand. And I don't expect anything. He paused, searching for words that could bridge the vast space between them. "I wanted you to know it's real. What I felt singing to you, it wasn't for show." Her chest tightened. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust the honesty in his tone, but experience had taught her caution. Why now? Why me? She wondered. The diner's clock ticked steadily. Outside, the rain poured, cutting off the city's noise, isolating them in this intimate bubble. Forced by circumstance, proximity, and shared vulnerability, the barriers between them began to crack. Adrian finally smiled, small and genuine. "I didn't come here expecting you to fall in love with me right away. I just wanted to see if we could talk. Really talk." Mia met his gaze, searching for any trace of deception. She found none, only sincerity, and perhaps a hint of nervous hope. Tentatively, she nodded. "Okay, we can talk." They spoke in slow, cautious exchanges at first, simple questions about her day, his travels, mutual observations about the rain-soaked streets outside. Yet beneath the surface, each word carried weight, each pause charged with possibility. The ordinary diner became a haven of intimacy, where titles and social expectations fell away, leaving two people simply present. Hours passed unnoticed. A forgotten cup of coffee, a stray napkin, a lingering glance, small details stitched the fabric of connection between them. Adrian listened to Mia's stories, laughing softly at her anecdotes, feeling the world shrink down to the space between them. Mia, in turn, began to see beyond the spectacle, catching glimpses of the man beneath the headlines, the man capable of vulnerability, humility, and unexpected tenderness. By the time the rain slowed to a drizzle, both felt a subtle, undeniable shift. The spark ignited at the gala had grown into a fragile flame, nurtured by forced proximity and honest interaction. They weren't rushing, they weren't claiming anything, yet a new understanding, a shared recognition, hung in the air, impossible to ignore. Adrian stood to leave, reluctant. "I should go," he murmured, though neither wanted the moment to end. Mia's hand brushed his briefly, lingering slightly longer than casual contact. I'm glad you came," she said softly, the words carrying more weight than she realized. His smile was quiet but charged. "Me too. I promise I'll find a way to see you again." Outside, the rain had ceased entirely, leaving the streets glistening in the city lights. They stepped into the night separately, yet a sense of connection, fragile but real, followed them both, a tether neither could yet explain but neither wanted to sever. The city had settled into a quiet rhythm after the relentless storm, but for Mia Harper, the calm was deceptive. Thoughts of Adrian lingered in every corner of her mind, entwined with memories she usually kept carefully tucked away. Her apartment was modest, warm but unremarkable, walls lined with books, a small collection of photos of family and friends, and traces of a life spent building herself up from the scraps life had handed her. She sank onto the worn sofa, a mug of lukewarm tea in her hands, and her gaze settled on a photograph tucked between two stacks of bills. It was of her younger sister, smiling wide, the kind of smile that could light up a room. But the memory accompanying it was bittersweet. A fire had taken her sister's apartment years ago, leaving Mia to shoulder guilt and responsibility that had never fully faded. Her chest tightened. Vulnerability was dangerous. Sharing her story, letting someone in, it risked heartbreak, judgment, exposure. She had learned long ago that the world didn't give second chances easily, and that love often came with costs she couldn't afford. Meanwhile, Adrian Cole faced his own ghosts. In the quiet of his penthouse, he flipped open an old leather-bound notebook, worn at the edges. Sketches, song lyrics, and personal reflections stared back at him, traces of a boy who had dreamed of connection long before wealth had insulated him. Adrian had been raised in a world that valued image over intimacy, transactions over affection. Every relationship had been measured, calculated, and ultimately hollow. The gala's song wasn't just impulsive, it was an act of defiance, a refusal to let his past dictate his present. Their worlds, so different in circumstance yet similar in emotional scars, were now poised to collide more fully. Fate, or perhaps circumstance, intervened sooner than either expected. A few days after the diner encounter, Adrian arranged a small private dinner at a cozy, low-lit restaurant. Mia hesitated before agreeing, her instincts warning her of potential pitfalls, yet curiosity and a fragile trust pulled her forward. She arrived early, choosing a corner table that allowed her to observe without feeling trapped. Adrian entered moments later, not in a tailored suit, but casually, soft sweater, jeans, an approachable smile that made the weight of headlines and cameras disappear. He greeted her with a warmth that immediately put her slightly at ease. They ordered food, shared small talk, yet the conversation inevitably drifted deeper. Adrian, after a hesitant pause, began sharing fragments of his past, the pressures of wealth, the loneliness behind the veneer, the moments when he longed simply to be seen for who he was. His voice softened, revealing cracks that no gala performance could ever expose. Mia listened, recognizing the echoes of her own guarded heart. She hesitated, then, with tentative courage, opened up about her past, the responsibilities she had shouldered after her sister's tragedy, the fear of instability, the years of learning to survive in a world that often overlooked her. Words she rarely spoke aloud slipped between them, accompanied by shared silences heavy with understanding. For a moment, they were stripped of titles, wealth, and appearances. They were two people navigating the aftermath of loss, fear, and longing, discovering that connection could exist across social divides if they allowed it. Yet secrets, as they often do, have a way of surfacing uninvited. As Mia recounted a particularly painful memory, a forgotten letter slipped from her jacket pocket onto the table. Adrian picked it up, curiosity flickering in his eyes. It was from her late sister, filled with words of encouragement, hope, and love, reminders of the resilience that had shaped Mia. Adrian's fingers brushed against hers as he handed it back, and in that small touch, a silent understanding passed between them. He didn't just see her beauty or charm, he saw the woman forged by fire, the depth behind her laughter, and the strength behind her vulnerability. But the dinner also revealed tensions. Mia's fear of the public eye, her life being scrutinized or reduced to gossip, created hesitation. Adrian's own insecurities, would she ever truly trust someone of his world, loomed quietly. The night ended with a tentative promise to see each other again, a fragile step forward amid the shadows of their pasts. By the time Mia walked home, the city lights reflected in puddles on the sidewalk, she felt the weight of everything she had shared, and the relief of having someone witness it without judgment. Adrian, returning to his penthouse, stared out over the skyline, the letter from her sister in hand, realizing that the connection forming between them was more than chance. It was a collision of hearts daring to heal. The act of unveiling backstory had deepened their bond, revealing both pain and resilience, and set the stage for emotional bonding that could flourish only if they embraced trust and vulnerability. Have you ever shared a piece of your past with someone and felt truly seen for the first time? Share a moment when opening up changed your connection with someone. The days that followed their dinner passed in a blur of subtle, stolen moments. Adrian and Mia began seeing each other in small, intentional ways. A coffee run in the quiet morning hours, a shared walk through a rain-slicked park, brief lunches where the noise of the world felt distant. Each meeting was a delicate dance, a balance of curiosity, hesitation, and a growing desire that neither wanted to rush. One evening, Adrian invited Mia to his apartment, not the penthouse that gleamed with excess, but the smaller, lived-in side of his home, where shelves of books and personal mementos lined the walls. He wanted her to see the world behind the headlines, the man who existed beyond wealth and status. Mia stepped inside cautiously, eyes scanning the room, taking in the warmth that came from lived-in spaces, soft rugs, the smell of old books mingled with fresh coffee. She felt a flutter of nervous excitement. This world was so far from the diner, from her simple routines, yet Adrian made it feel inviting, not intimidating. They sat on the couch, a distance that felt intimate yet respectful. For the first time, conversation flowed without pretense. Adrian shared a story about a failed musical performance from years ago, and Mia laughed, the sound ringing clear and light. Her laughter seemed to fill the apartment, warming corners that had felt cold to him for years. Then, the conversation shifted. Mia, emboldened by the safety of this private space, spoke of her childhood dreams, of the time she had wanted to run away and see the world, of the small joys that kept her going even on the hardest days. Adrian listened, hanging on every word, realizing that every story, every memory, made her even more captivating. At one point, Adrian reached across the space between them, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. Mia didn't pull back. She let the moment linger, letting herself feel the closeness she had long avoided. His fingers lingered at her jaw, tracing a path of unspoken affection. Their eyes met, the world outside shrinking to a single heartbeat shared between them. "I feel like I've known you longer than I should," Adrian admitted, his voice low, sincere. "Like somehow I was waiting for this, waiting for you." Mia's chest tightened. She wanted to deny it, to remain cautious, yet the truth in his words resonated deep within her. "I feel it too," she whispered, almost afraid to break the fragile spell. They spent hours talking, sharing memories, dreams, fears, and laughter, discovering a rhythm that was theirs alone. With each passing moment, the walls Mia had built around her heart softened, letting trust seep in. Adrian, too, shed layers of guarded pride, exposing vulnerability he had long hidden behind confidence and spectacle. Later, as the night deepened and city lights twinkled through the windows, Adrian suggested music. He played a soft melody on the piano, improvising gently, the notes floating through the room like whispered promises. Mia listened, mesmerized, feeling her heart open in ways she had not dared for years. She realized that connection was not about grandeur or headlines. It was about presence, attention, and sincerity. By the time she left that night, the bond between them had solidified. It was fragile, delicate, and entirely real. A shared glance, a soft smile, a brush of fingers at the door. These were the moments that defined them, moments that hinted at the love blossoming quietly, resiliently, against the odds. Mia walked home under a sky cleared of rain, each step lighter than before. Adrian lingered by his window, watching the world outside, heart quietly racing. For the first time, both felt something that went beyond attraction. It was a sense of belonging, the thrilling, terrifying intimacy of two hearts daring to trust. The following week began with a deceptive calm. Adrian and Mia had fallen into an unspoken rhythm, their connection growing with each passing day. Yet, as often happens with fragile happiness, reality demanded its reckoning. It started with a message, a photograph circulating online, posted by a tabloid account. It showed Adrian laughing with another woman at a charity gala, her hand resting on his arm in a way that looked intimate. The caption screamed scandal, and the comment section ignited with speculation. Adrian knew the woman only casually, a fellow philanthropist, but to the world, the image told a different story. Mia, scrolling absent-mindedly through her phone during a slow shift at the diner, froze. Her stomach tightened as the photo registered. She felt a rush of betrayal, a flood of doubt she hadn't anticipated. All the careful trust she had built, the vulnerability she had allowed herself, seemed to teeter on the edge of collapse. She stared at the screen, heart pounding, unable to shake the image from her mind. Was it real? Had he been playing her all along? The questions spiraled, each one heavier than the last. When Adrian arrived at the diner later that day, she avoided his gaze, her hands trembling as she cleared a table. Adrian noticed immediately. He approached slowly, eyes soft but alert. "Mia, please, let me explain," he said, voice low, measured, but tinged with urgency. Mia shook her head. I saw the photo, Adrian. I can't. Her voice faltered, raw with emotion. I trusted you. I thought what we had meant something. It does, he insisted, taking a cautious step closer. It's not what it looks like. I swear. I can't hear it, she snapped, a tear slipping down her cheek. I can't. You're supposed to be different. I believed in you, and now I don't know what's real anymore. The diner felt smaller, the air thicker, each word sharp enough to cut through the fragile bond they had built. Adrian's chest tightened, not from anger, but from the sting of seeing her doubt, her pain, the very emotions he had sought to protect her from. I never wanted to hurt you, he said, voice breaking slightly. You're the only one I care about. But Mia had already stepped away, retreating into the back room to gather her composure. Her heart screamed for him, yet pride and fear restrained her. She couldn't reconcile the image with the man she had come to trust, the vulnerability he had shown her in quiet moments away from the world. Adrian remained by the diner door, staring after her, frustration and sorrow battling within him. He understood the impact of appearances, the danger of public perception, but he also knew the truth of his feelings. And yet, in this moment, truth seemed powerless against the weight of misunderstanding. Hours passed in silence. The diner closed, the lights dimmed, and Mia went home, the photograph burned into her mind. Adrian lingered outside, unwilling to leave, hoping she might emerge, that one word or gesture could undo the fracture forming between them. By nightfall, both were left alone with their thoughts. Mia wrestled with the betrayal she hadn't truly experienced but felt viscerally. Adrian battled frustration and helplessness, knowing he had bared his heart only to see it questioned. The tension between longing and doubt, love and fear, reached its peak, a shatterpoint that threatened to undo everything they had carefully nurtured. In that moment, the story hung suspended, a fragile thread between reconciliation and loss. One decision, one act of courage or avoidance, would determine whether their bond survived or splintered forever. The morning after the confrontation, Mia Harper woke with a heaviness pressing against her chest. The photograph still haunted her thoughts, though she knew rationally it was misleading. Yet emotion rarely listens to reason. She moved through her morning routine mechanically, pouring coffee, arranging pastries, forcing polite smiles at early customers. But every glance toward the diner door carried the hope and the fear that Adrian might appear. Across the city, Adrian Cole sat in his penthouse, the skyline glittering like a distant promise. He had spent the night replaying every interaction, every gesture, every word spoken between them. He understood that the photograph had broken the fragile trust Mia had placed in him, and he wrestled with how to repair it. Pride whispered for him to wait, to let her come to him, but his heart refused patience. He knew he had to act, not for the world, not for appearances, but for the woman who had captured his soul. By midday, Adrian found himself standing outside the diner. The air was crisp, sunlight glinting off the rain-slicked streets from days prior. He watched Mia through the window, her focus absolute as she served customers, laughter occasionally escaping despite the tension lingering around her. His chest tightened at the sight. He could not let a misunderstanding, an image taken out of context, dissolve the connection they had fought to build. Mia's eyes caught his reflection in the glass. For a suspended moment, time seemed to halt. She felt the familiar pull of his presence, the warmth, the sincerity, the vulnerability she had glimpsed before. But fear still held her, whispering caution. Don't trust too fast. Don't open yourself to possible hurt. Adrian pushed the door open, the bell jingling gently. The diner seemed to hush, or perhaps it was just the intensity of the moment that silenced the background noise. He approached her cautiously, keeping his voice low, reverent. Mia, he said, soft but unwavering, please hear me. I know you saw that photo. It was misleading, but I don't expect you to believe me immediately. I just need you to know, you're the only one I've ever meant anything like this to. Her hands clenched around a coffee cup, knuckles whitening. Her chest rose and fell as she fought the turmoil within, trust battling fear, desire wrestling with pride. For a long moment, neither spoke, the silence thick with unspoken emotions. Finally, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the gentle hum of the diner, "How can I know?" Adrian stepped closer, his hand brushing hers, a gesture of reassurance. "Because everything I've done, everything I've risked, is for you. You're not a headline. You're not a story. You're you. And I'm done pretending that I can control what this world thinks about us. I only care about you." Mia's eyes filled with tears, a tremble passing through her. The walls she had built over years wavered under the weight of his sincerity. She could feel the truth radiating from him, a raw honesty that no photograph or gossip could ever obscure. She took a shaky breath, searching his eyes for any trace of deceit, and found none. In that instant, she made a choice, not one of logic, but of heart. Slowly, deliberately, she reached for his hand, interlacing her fingers with his. The world outside faded, leaving only the warmth of their connection, the quiet conviction of a bond tested and now reaffirmed. Adrian's lips curved into a relieved, tender smile. "I won't let you go," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "Not now, not ever." Mia let herself lean into the moment, letting years of caution melt away. She had chosen trust over fear, love over doubt, and in doing so, allowed the fragile flame between them to ignite into something resilient and undeniable. The choice was made, and with it came a profound sense of relief and possibility. They had faced the shatter point, confronted the doubts and insecurities that threatened their connection, and emerged with a deeper understanding of each other. For the first time, both felt the unshakable certainty that they were where they belonged, together. As they stepped outside into the city streets, the sun broke through the clouds, casting the world in a warm glow. It felt symbolic, a quiet affirmation of their renewed bond. Hand in hand, they walked forward, not just as two individuals, but as a unit forged through vulnerability, honesty, and the courage to choose each other. The weeks that followed were filled with quiet, joyful discovery. Adrian and Mia navigated their worlds together, blending the extraordinary and the ordinary in a way that felt natural and right. She learned to see the man beyond the headlines, the thoughtful gestures, the vulnerability, the unguarded laughter that shimmered like sunlight through clouds. He learned to treasure the woman whose strength had been honed by adversity, whose laughter and warmth filled the spaces he hadn't known were empty. One Saturday morning, Adrian invited Mia to the park where they had first taken a walk in the rain. The trees were in full bloom, petals floating gently on the breeze, sunlight filtering through the branches. It was a quiet, private world far removed from gala lights and social scrutiny, a space for only the two of them. Adrian held her hand as they walked, the simple contact grounding them. "Do you remember the first time we really talked without all the cameras and spectacle?" he asked, his voice soft but steady. Mia smiled, recalling the nervous excitement at the diner. "I remember thinking, this might be impossible. That someone like you could even care about someone like me." He laughed, the sound light, easy, filled with genuine happiness. "And now, I can't imagine my life without you," she admitted, squeezing his hand. "You've shown me that love isn't about appearances, it's about presence, trust, and courage." Adrian paused, looking down at her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. "I sang for you, Mia, because I had to. I couldn't let another day go by without showing you how much you mean to me. And now, I want the rest of my life to be with you." Her breath caught, tears glistening in her eyes. She had never expected love to arrive like this, unexpected, bold, transformative. And yet, here it was, tangible and real, anchored in trust and honesty. With a gentle sweep, Adrian pulled her into a hug, one that conveyed everything words could not. The world around them blurred, leaving only the shared warmth, the quiet certainty that they had chosen each other fully. For Mia, it was the culmination of years of restraint, fear, and guarded heartbeats. For Adrian, it was the triumph of courage over pride, vulnerability over public perception. Together they had traversed the spectrum of emotion, from awe to resistance, from fragility to bond, from shatter to choice, and emerged stronger, united, and deeply in love. As they walked through the sun-drenched park, the city alive around them but feeling miles away, they laughed softly, shared glances full of unspoken understanding, and held hands as though letting go was impossible. The world might watch, might gossip, might speculate, but they had discovered a love that transcended spectacle, one forged in sincerity and courage. Mia looked up at Adrian, smiling through tears. "Thank you for singing, for waiting, for choosing me." Adrian kissed her forehead, whispering, "And thank you for letting me in." In that moment, everything settled into place. The song that had begun as a bold declaration at a gala had become a metaphor for their journey, a symbol of risk, trust, and the courage to love fully. They had found each other, not in the safety of solitude, but in the vulnerability of choice. And as the sun set, casting the city in golden light, Adrian and Mia walked forward together, hand in hand, hearts aligned, and a future full of possibilities stretching endlessly before them. Have you ever taken a leap of faith and love and found it was worth every risk? Share your story and inspire someone to choose courage over fear. The city hummed quietly under a golden late afternoon sun, but Mia Harper's apartment felt anything but calm. She sat cross-legged on the couch, a letter trembling in her hands, the envelope carefully torn open. The small, delicate locket nestled inside glinted in the fading light, the engraving instantly recognizable, her late sister's initials, looping elegantly on the metal surface. Her fingers traced the curves almost reverently, the memories rushing back with a bittersweet clarity that made her chest ache. It had been years since she'd held anything of her sister's, anything that survived the fire, the loss, the aftermath. And yet here it was, in her hands as if sent by fate itself. Alongside it, a note carefully folded, inked in handwriting she vaguely recognized but couldn't immediately place. "I've been keeping something from you, Mia. You deserve to know the truth about what happened that night. Meet me, and I'll explain everything." Her pulse raced, her heart hammering against her ribcage. The room seemed to shrink around her, the familiar walls suddenly confining. Who sent this? Why now? Her mind spun through possibilities. Her sister's old friends, neighbors, perhaps even someone from her childhood she hadn't seen in years. The locket felt heavy in her hand, a weight more symbolic than literal. It represented her past, her sister's memory, and a truth she hadn't dared confront. She wrapped it in a cloth, unsure whether to keep it or throw it away, unsure if the note was a gift or a trap. Every instinct screamed caution. Her thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. She glanced up to see Adrian standing there, his expression calm but alert. He had noticed her tension during their morning coffee, the unusual quiet on her phone, and had come without asking. "Mia," he said gently, stepping inside without waiting for an invitation. "What's wrong?" She held up the locket, her hand shaking slightly. "This came today. I don't know who sent it, or why, but it's from her. From my sister. And a note." Her voice faltered as she read the words aloud. "It says, I need to meet them." Adrian took the locket carefully, examining it with a thoughtful frown. "It's beautiful," he murmured, returning it to her. His fingers brushed hers, and the warmth of that brief touch grounded her amid the swirling storm of emotions. "We'll face this together. Whatever it is, we won't do it alone." Mia swallowed hard, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. She knew he was sincere, but the thought of revisiting her sister's past, of confronting the unresolved, scared her more than she cared to admit. She had spent years protecting herself, burying guilt and grief under layers of routine and work. This locket threatened to peel all that away. The next morning, they set out together, walking to the cafe mentioned in the note. The streets glistened from an overnight drizzle, leaves clinging to puddles like fragments of forgotten memories. Mia's grip on the locket tightened with every step. Adrian walked beside her, unassuming yet protective, offering the quiet reassurance of presence rather than words. The cafe was small, tucked between two tall buildings, warm with the scent of baked goods and coffee. The bell above the door jingled as they entered, and Mia immediately spotted the woman who had sent the locket. It was someone she hadn't seen in years, her childhood friend Hannah, who had survived the fire that took her sister. Hannah's eyes widened with relief and hesitation as she saw Mia, and she gestured for them to sit. The air was thick with unspoken tension. Mia's chest tightened, a combination of curiosity and fear. What has she been keeping from me all these years? I'm sorry it took me so long, Hannah began, voice trembling slightly. I didn't know how to tell you everything back then. I was afraid it would break you further. But you deserve the truth. Mia nodded slowly, trying to steady her breath. Tell me, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Hannah took a deep breath. The night of the fire, your sister tried to save someone else first. She made sure that I escaped, that I was safe, before she even thought about herself. I've carried this with me for years, knowing I could never repay her. The locket, she wanted you to have it, but I was afraid you'd blame yourself again, or that it would bring more pain. Mia's hands shook as she held the locket. Tears blurred her vision. I blamed myself for so long, thinking I could have done more, that I failed her, she admitted. And now this. Adrian reached across the table, taking her hand in his. Mia, none of that was your fault. You survived. You loved her. That's what matters. You carried her memory forward. His voice was steady, unwavering, carrying a weight that made her feel anchored amid the tidal wave of emotion. Hannah smiled faintly, her own eyes glistening. I'm sorry I kept it from you. I wanted to protect you, but maybe I only protected myself. The conversation stretched for hours. They pieced together fragments of memories, filling in gaps, sharing laughter at long-forgotten moments, and crying over the painful truths. Mia felt layers of grief lifting, replaced by clarity and understanding. She saw not only the past with new perspective, but also the present, how Adrian's steadfast presence could be her anchor through storms of uncertainty. Later, as they stepped out into the cool evening air, the city lights casting a soft glow over wet streets, Mia felt a profound sense of release. She turned to Adrian, holding his hand tightly. Thank you for being here. For not letting me face this alone. Adrian smiled softly, brushing a damp strand of hair from her face. I'll always be here. You never have to face anything alone, Mia. Ever. For the first time in years, Mia felt a sense of peace settling over her, fragile but undeniable. The unexpected revelation, terrifying as it had seemed, became a bridge rather than a wall, a connection not only to her past but to the man walking beside her, willing to face it with her. And as they walked through the quiet streets, hand in hand, the locket pressed gently in her palm, she realized that some truths, no matter how delayed, could illuminate the heart rather than fracture it. The journey ahead would still hold challenges, but now she had Adrian, and her own resilience, by her side. The cafe was quieter than usual that afternoon, the soft hum of conversation punctuated by the occasional clink of cups and the hiss of the espresso machine. Mia Harper sat across from Hannah, her hands wrapped tightly around her coffee mug, knuckles pale with tension. Every fiber of her being screamed for answers, yet fear and apprehension held her in place. Adrian sat beside her, his presence a steadying anchor. He didn't speak, didn't offer advice. He simply held her hand under the table, letting her feel his support without interrupting her space. Mia drew comfort from his touch, yet the knot in her stomach remained. Hannah took a deep breath, folding and unfolding her hands nervously. I know this is hard, Mia. I've carried it for years, and I was afraid of what telling you might do. Her voice was trembling, weighted with guilt and lingering fear. Mia's eyes narrowed slightly, her heart pounding. Then tell me now. I need to hear it. I can't keep wondering, not after all these years. Hannah nodded, swallowing hard. It's about the fire, the night your sister died. She wasn't just unlucky, she was trying to save a whole group of people trapped on the upper floor. She made choices that put herself in danger, choices she never wanted you to blame yourself for. But I kept certain details from you because I thought you might collapse under it. Mia's chest tightened. She remembered the guilt, the years of sleepless nights, the heavy sense of responsibility she had carried alone. She had blamed herself, imagined scenarios where she could have done more, saved her sister, prevented the tragedy. Hearing Hannah's confession made her knees weak. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" she demanded, voice breaking. "Why did you leave me carrying all of this alone?" Hannah's eyes filled with tears. "I was scared. I didn't know how you'd react. And honestly, I didn't want to face my own guilt, either. I felt responsible in some way, and I thought shielding you was easier." Adrian squeezed Mia's hand tighter, silently reassuring her that she wasn't alone, that the responsibility she had felt wasn't hers to bear alone anymore. His presence gave her the courage to listen further, to hear the truth without letting it crush her. Mia drew in a shaky breath. "So all these years, I've blamed myself for things I couldn't control?" Hannah nodded, her voice barely a whisper. "Yes. And I'm sorry. I know that doesn't erase the pain, but you didn't fail her. None of this was your fault." The conversation stretched, ebbing and flowing like waves. Hannah revealed details of the fire she had withheld, how Mia's sister had prioritized the safety of others, the moment she had hesitated to ensure everyone escaped, and the heroic yet tragic choices she had made. The narrative was raw, intimate, and painful, but it also brought clarity and closure that Mia hadn't realized she needed. Mia's emotions oscillated between anger, sorrow, and relief. She clenched the locket, feeling the engraved initials burn with a memory of her sister's courage. Tears streamed down her face as she finally allowed herself to grieve fully, not just the loss, but the years of misdirected guilt she had carried. Adrian, sitting quietly beside her, whispered encouragement when she faltered. "It's okay to feel everything, Mia. You don't have to hold it in. You survived, and that's a testament to your strength, not your failure." Mia looked at him, gratitude mingling with vulnerability. His unwavering presence reminded her that love didn't have to be conditional, that trust could exist even after years of fear and guardedness. She realized that her connection with Adrian wasn't just about romance. It was about finding someone willing to stand beside her, fully present, even in her darkest moments. After what felt like hours, Mia finally spoke, her voice trembling but steady. "I needed to hear this. I needed the truth. And I think I can finally forgive myself. I can finally carry her memory without the weight of guilt." Hannah reached across the table, taking Mia's hand gently. "She would be proud of you, Mia. She always was." The confrontation was emotionally exhausting, but it also marked a turning point. Mia felt lighter, unburdened, and strangely empowered. The raw honesty, the exposure of hidden truths, and the acknowledgement of her pain had transformed the lingering shadows of her past into something she could hold with clarity and compassion. Adrian, sensing the shift, leaned closer, brushing a tear from Mia's cheek. "You're incredible," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "Not just because of what you've survived, but because of who you are now. And I want to be here for every moment of your life, not just the easy ones." Mia's lips curved into a tentative smile. "You've shown me what it means to be truly seen," she said softly. "Even when I've been broken, scared, or uncertain, you see me." They lingered in that moment, the world around them fading. The cafe's warm lighting, the faint aroma of coffee and pastries, and the soft murmur of other patrons receded, leaving only the profound intimacy of shared vulnerability. By the time they left the cafe, Mia's heart had begun to heal in ways she hadn't anticipated. The confrontation had not been easy, but it had been necessary. It had stripped away illusions, exposed truths, and allowed love to grow in fertile ground cleared of fear and misunderstanding. As they walked down the street, Adrian held her hand firmly, their fingers intertwined like a promise. The sun had begun to set, casting golden light over the city, and Mia realized that while the past could never be changed, she now had the power to shape her future, one with honesty, courage, and Adrian by her side. The unexpected confrontation, once a source of dread, had become a catalyst for healing, trust, and emotional intimacy. Mia understood that true connection wasn't about avoiding pain, it was about facing it, together, with courage and vulnerability. The night had fallen quietly over the city, a soft hush settling over streets still glistening from a light drizzle earlier in the evening. Mia Harper sat on the edge of Adrian's couch, the weight of the day pressing down on her chest. The confrontation at the cafe had stirred emotions she had kept buried for years: grief, guilt, fear, and now, slowly, a fragile sense of release. Adrian moved around the apartment quietly, making tea, lighting a single lamp so the room glowed with soft warmth. He didn't speak at first. He knew this wasn't about words. It was about presence, the unspoken promise that she didn't have to face the storm of her emotions alone. When he finally sat beside her, he didn't immediately reach for her hand. Instead, he gave her space, allowing the silence to speak, letting her know that she could choose when and how to open herself. Mia clutched the locket to her chest, the cold metal grounding her even as her mind spiraled. Memories of her sister, the fire, the years of carrying blame, it all collided in a storm of grief and relief. And yet, Adrian's presence provided a tether, a lifeline she hadn't realized she'd been waiting for. She began, voice trembling. She swallowed hard, glancing at him. I've been so afraid of opening up, of trusting, of being vulnerable, because I didn't want to be hurt again. Adrian's gaze softened. He leaned closer, gently brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. You don't have to be afraid with me, Mia. I'm not going anywhere. I see you, all of you, and I want to be here in every part of your life, the easy and the hard. The words broke something open inside her. Mia's lips trembled as she let herself take a shaky breath, the dam of years of bottled-up emotion threatening to burst. I've carried so much guilt, grief, fear. I thought I could handle it alone. I thought I had to. But I can't, not anymore. Adrian reached out, taking her hands gently in his thumb brushing circles over her knuckles in silent reassurance. You don't have to. Not ever. Let me in, Mia. Let me help carry it with you. Tears slipped down her cheeks, and this time, she didn't wipe them away. She let herself feel every ounce of the pain, sorrow, and relief coursing through her. The vulnerability she had feared for so long became a bridge, connecting her heart fully with his. She leaned into him, resting her head on his shoulder, the faint scent of his cologne mingling with the warmth of the lamp. For the first time in years, she felt completely seen, completely safe. Adrian's arms wrapped around her naturally, holding her with a gentleness that spoke volumes more than words could. I've been so strong for so long, she whispered, and I thought that was the only way. But maybe strength isn't about hiding everything, it's about letting someone in when you need them. Adrian kissed the top of her head, his lips lingering, grounding her. That's exactly right. And I want to be that someone for you, always. No judgment, no distance. Just us. Mia's sob softened, replaced by a quiet, trembling laughter, the kind that escapes when pain is met with understanding. I never thought I'd feel this, safe, this scene. I didn't know it was possible. He tilted her chin gently, looking into her eyes, letting the truth in his own gaze speak. It is possible. And it's real, Mia. You just have to allow yourself to feel it, to trust me. For hours, they stayed like that, Mia sharing memories of her sister, the guilt she had carried, the fear she had hidden, and Adrian listening with unwavering attention. Every word she spoke, every tear she shed, deepened the connection, turning vulnerability into intimacy. The emotional wall she had built over years crumbled, brick by brick, as she realized that love, true love, wasn't about perfection, it was about being fully known and fully accepted. Adrian, too, shared parts of himself that night, his fears, his past heartbreaks, the loneliness that had often shadowed his life despite the glamour of wealth. Mia listened, surprised by the depth of his honesty. She realized that vulnerability was reciprocal. By opening herself, she gave him the permission to open too. Together, they created a space of mutual trust, a rare intimacy forged not through grand gestures but through honesty, presence, and the courage to show their true selves. At one point, Mia laughed softly through tears, a sound that felt like release. "I feel like I can finally breathe," she admitted. "Like I can finally be myself without hiding behind fear." Adrian smiled, brushing a wet strand of hair from her cheek. "That's how I want you to feel. Every single day, if I can." The breakthrough didn't end in a dramatic flourish. It was quiet, profound, and steady. A shared cup of tea, hands entwined, whispered reassurances, and the gentle cadence of breathing together marked a turning point. Mia realized that love wasn't about grand declarations. It was about consistency, trust, and the courage to remain present for each other through life's messiness. As the night deepened, Mia finally let herself relax completely. She leaned against Adrian, feeling the strength in his embrace, the steadiness of his heartbeat syncing with her own. For the first time in her life, she allowed herself to imagine a future without fear, without guilt, without the weight of past trauma dictating her every move. She could envision mornings filled with laughter, quiet evenings shared, and even challenges met together. "I trust you," she whispered, barely audible but loaded with weight. "And I trust us." Adrian's lips curved into a tender smile. "And I'll spend every day earning that trust, Mia. I promise." The city skyline glittered under the warm hues of a late afternoon sun, but Adrian Cole's penthouse felt cold and still. The opulent space, usually alive with a subtle hum of life and success, was suffused with tension. Papers were scattered across the glass coffee table, contracts, proposals, and urgent memos that demanded his immediate attention. Yet none of it mattered. His heart and mind were consumed with a single more pressing decision: Mia Harper. The phone call he had received that morning had thrown everything into chaos. A rare high-stakes business opportunity had emerged, a potential merger that could elevate his company beyond all expectations. It required him to leave the country immediately, perhaps for months. The offer was irresistible from a professional standpoint, but the emotional cost was staggering. Adrian had always believed he could balance ambition and personal life, but with Mia, everything had shifted. The careful equilibrium of his heart could not accommodate absence, no matter how strategic it was for his empire. Leaving now would not just mean physical distance. It would test the fragile trust they had spent weeks rebuilding, after the misunderstandings and revelations that had shaken their bond. He paced the floor, hands running through his hair, thoughts churning. Do I follow the plan, the one that guarantees a financial triumph but risks losing the most important person in my life? Or do I choose the unpredictable path of love and stay, risking criticism, missed opportunities, and the scorn of those who measure success by numbers alone? Mia arrived at his penthouse that evening, unaware of the storm swirling inside him. She found him standing by the window, staring out at the city, shoulders tense, expression unreadable. The moment she entered, he turned, eyes searching hers for understanding, for judgment, for permission to speak. "Mia," he began, voice low and deliberate. "There's something I need to tell you." Her brow furrowed slightly, sensing the gravity in his tone. "What is it?" Adrian gestured toward the stack of documents on the table. "A business opportunity. It's urgent, and it will take me overseas immediately. Months, maybe longer. I could leave tomorrow." Mia's heart clenched. She had expected challenges, but the thought of months apart filled her chest with a raw ache she hadn't anticipated. She swallowed hard, trying to maintain composure. "And you're telling me this now?" "Yes," he admitted, taking a cautious step closer. "I wanted to be honest. I don't want to leave you wondering or worrying. But Mia, the truth is, I don't want to go. Not if it means being away from you." Her eyes widened, disbelief mixing with hope and fear. "You don't?" she asked softly, voice trembling. "No," he said, shaking his head. "I've spent too long chasing things that didn't matter. I've realized the only thing that matters is you. Everything else can wait, or it can wait for me to return." But I can't risk our bond for ambition. I won't risk losing you. Mia's throat tightened. She felt a rush of emotions, relief, love, fear, and all at once. She had seen men in Adrian's position prioritize wealth and power over everything else, yet here he was, placing their connection above career, above social expectation, above prestige. Tears welled in her eyes as she reached out, cupping his face with both hands. Adrian, you don't know what this means to me. You could have left, and I might have understood, but you chose me. You chose us. He leaned into her touch, closing his eyes briefly. I did. And I will every day. You've shown me that life is richer with love, with connection, with vulnerability. I won't take that for granted again. Mia's tears spilled freely now, her chest heaving with emotion. I've waited for someone like you. Someone who sees me, who stays when it would be easier to leave. I love you, Adrian. Adrian pulled her into a long embrace, the city outside fading into irrelevance. Every ounce of doubt, fear, and hesitation dissipated in the warmth of that moment. He whispered into her hair, voice thick with emotion, I love you too, Mia. And I'm never letting go. They separated slightly, foreheads resting together, breathing in unison, hearts aligned. Silence enveloped them, but it was not the emptiness of uncertainty. It was the serenity of choice made, of love affirmed, of sacrifice willingly given. I can't imagine what my life would be like without you, Mia admitted, voice soft but steady. And I don't want to imagine it. We've been through so much, and if this is what it takes to truly be together, I'll face it. Adrian smiled, a tender, relieved smile that spoke volumes. Then we face it together. Every decision, every risk, every moment. You and me. They spent the evening planning how he would adjust his work, negotiating a path that allowed him to remain close while still fulfilling certain professional responsibilities. It wasn't perfect, but it was theirs, a compromise born not out of obligation, but out of love, respect, and mutual understanding. As the night deepened, Adrian held Mia close, whispering promises of presence, devotion, and patience. They spoke of dreams, future trips, quiet evenings at home, and laughter-filled mornings. Each word, each touch, each shared glance reinforced the choice they had made, to prioritize each other, to honor their bond above all else. The city lights outside the penthouse window shimmered like stars brought down to earth. Adrian and Mia, hearts still racing, embraced the quiet triumph of love chosen deliberately, courageously, and without hesitation. In that moment, every past fear, every misstep, every challenge they had faced together seemed worth it. They had arrived at a point where vulnerability had been rewarded, trust had been solidified, and love had proven stronger than ambition, doubt, or circumstance. By the time dawn crept over the horizon, they were still entwined, a promise etched in every touch, every breath, every heartbeat. The climactic choice had been made, not for fame, not for fortune, not for convenience, but for the love that had blossomed unexpectedly, survived adversity, and now stood resilient, radiant, and unshakable. The city woke under a soft morning light, the streets glimmering with the remnants of an early rain. Adrian and Mia walked hand in hand through the quiet avenues, the world around them gradually coming to life, the clatter of cafe cups, the low hum of distant traffic, and the occasional bark of a dog echoing in the crisp air. But in that moment, the noise of the city felt distant, almost irrelevant. Their focus was only on each other, their steps in perfect sync, a rhythm cultivated through shared trials, breakthroughs, and choices made from the heart. The memory of the gala, the song, and the initial declaration of love lingered, not as a spectacle, but as a sacred marker of how far they had come. Adrian glanced at Mia, sunlight glinting in her hair, and felt a wave of gratitude so profound it made his chest ache. She stayed. She trusted. And we built something that no misunderstanding, no revelation, and no challenge could destroy. Mia, sensing his gaze, smiled softly, and he returned it with the warmth of someone who had discovered not just love, but a home in another person. The years of fear, miscommunication, and guardedness seemed like echoes of another life, distant and almost surreal. Here and now, they were free to simply be, unburdened by the past, unafraid of the future. They paused at a small park, one where the trees arched like protective sentinels, and the grass was dotted with the first blooms of spring. Adrian had suggested it as a quiet place to reconnect after the intensity of the past weeks. He had arranged a subtle surprise, a street musician tucked beneath a tree, softly strumming a familiar melody that had once echoed through the gala hall. The tune was gentle, haunting, but filled with warmth. Mia stopped, recognition flickering across her features. "You didn't," she began, a laugh and a gasp mingling in her voice. "You didn't have to do this." Adrian reached for her hands, bringing them to his lips, kissing each knuckle reverently. "I did it because you deserve it. Because we deserve moments like this, quiet, simple, and ours." Tears shimmered in Mia's eyes, but this time they were tears of joy and relief rather than sorrow or fear. "You've made every risk, every declaration, every moment worth it," she whispered. "I've never felt more seen, more alive." He smiled, brushing a damp strand of hair from her forehead. "And I promise, we'll keep creating moments like this. Every day if we can. Not for anyone else, not for the world, but for us." The musician's song swelled, a delicate cadence that seemed to echo the journey they had undertaken together, from misunderstanding to revelation, from confrontation to breakthrough, from sacrifice to choice. The melody reminded Mia of every emotional heartbeat they had shared, every whispered word, every tear, every smile, every risk, and every victory of trust. They walked slowly through the park, Adrian's arm around her shoulders, Mia leaning slightly into him. Each step was deliberate, a quiet affirmation that they were present, fully and entirely, in this life together. The city buzzed beyond the park's borders, but here, they existed in a private universe, carved out of love, courage, and shared vulnerability. Mia stopped near a small fountain, the water catching sunlight and scattering it in playful glimmers. She turned to Adrian, heart swelling with emotion. "Do you remember when all of this began? The song, the gala, the chaos. I never imagined it would lead to this." Adrian's lips curved into a tender, wistful smile. "Neither did I," he admitted. "But sometimes the most unexpected paths lead to the most beautiful destinations." They stood in silence for a moment, letting the city's distant hum, the fountain's trickle, and the soft music envelop them. Mia's fingers found Adrian's, their grip firm and unyielding, a silent promise of permanence. In that moment, there was no past guilt, no lingering doubts, no looming decisions, only the certainty of connection, the warmth of love chosen deliberately, and the power of two hearts aligned. Adrian drew her closer, his forehead resting against hers. "We've faced everything," he murmured, voice thick with emotion. "The misunderstandings, the revelations, the choices, and we've come out stronger. I love you, Mia Harper. I always have, and I always will." Mia's eyes glistened, reflecting sunlight, hope, and joy. "And I love you, Adrian Cole. Not just for who you are, but for how you see me. For how you stayed when it mattered most. For the courage to choose us every single day." He pressed a gentle kiss to her lips, lingering, affirming, sealing the journey they had taken together. It was not just a kiss of passion but a kiss of understanding, of triumph, of shared history, of unshakable trust. As they parted, Adrian took a step back, scanning her face, memorizing the curve of her smile, the glint in her eyes. "Let's walk this path together, Mia. No more running, no more hiding. Just us." Mia laughed softly, the sound pure and light, carrying away the shadows of past fear. "Yes. Just us." The city continued to wake, the morning sun rising higher, bathing streets, buildings, and people in golden light. Adrian and Mia walked hand in hand, the world stretching endlessly before them, filled with possibilities, challenges, joys, and moments to savor. The story that had begun with a bold public declaration had evolved into something deeper, a love tested, proven, and cherished, resilient against misunderstandings, revelations, and life's unpredictable twists. They passed the small park, the fountain spray catching in the sunlight, shimmering like a million tiny stars. Adrian paused for a moment, looking down at Mia. "You know," he said, voice low, teasing yet tender, "I think every love story should have a song. And ours, well, ours is still playing." Mia smiled, resting her head on his shoulder. "And I hope it never stops." Together they moved forward, hand in hand, hearts aligned, facing the world not as two individuals, but as a united force, bound by courage, choice, vulnerability, and the undeniable power of unexpected love. Have you ever taken a leap of faith and love that changed everything? Share your story and inspire someone to embrace vulnerability, courage, and the beauty of choosing love. Subscribe and like for more stories.